Old games were just better. Yep, that's it. Not different, not charming, or nostalgic, just better. And before someone says it is just nostalgia, no. I've been replaying these games all my life. Actually sitting down with the controller in hand, no childhood memories doing the heavy lifting, and they still hit harder than most modern games I try to play today. There's just something, I think, about booting up Spyro or Crash Bandicoot, Metal Gear Solid, and immediately feeling like the game wants you there, like it's actually excited to show you something. You are greeted by the main menu, you press play, and you're in. No 15-minute tutorial, no pop-up explaining how to walk, no cinematic telling you how important the story is. You just play, and within seconds, you get it. Take Spyro. You're a tiny purple dragon in a bright, beautiful, colourful world, collecting gems and flaming down enemies. That's the whole deal, but it feels amazing. The movement is smooth, the levels are compact, but packed with enough stuff, and every single area feels like someone actually cared about how it plays. Nothing is randomly generated and nothing feels padded out. You basically go somewhere, do a thing, and feel rewarded. It's simple, clean, and fun. Now, compare that to a lot of modern games, where you load in and immediately get smacked with menus, currencies, XP bars, NPCs dumping lore on you that you absolutely do not care about yet. And let's not forget, battle passes in absolutely everything. The game hasn't earned your attention, but it's demanding it anyway. Older games, I think, actually did earn it. Crash Bandicoot is another perfect example of this. That game does not waste your time. You spawn in, you run forward, you jump, spin, you die, a lot, but every death feels fair. You learn something every time, and when you finally beat a hard level, you feel amazing. There's no auto-correcting your mistakes, none of this recovery, no invisible hand making sure you don't feel bad. Just checkpoint and a limited number of lives. The game respects you enough to let you fail. And I think that's a huge part of why these games feel better. They weren't afraid to frustrate you a little bit. They weren't afraid to be weird. They simply were just games built for fun. Modern games feel scared. Scared you'll quit. Scared you won't have that engagement time. Scared you won't buy the DLC. So everything gets smoothed out. Everything gets streamlined and everything gets safe and easy. And the result is a lot of games that, yes, look incredible, run fine, and yet feel completely hollow. You play them for a few hours and maybe even finish them, and then immediately forget they exist. But you'll remember the sound of collecting gems in Spyro forever. That is not an accident. Older games had limitations, whether it be hardware, memory, storage, and instead of bloating everything with useless rubbish, developers had to focus on what actually mattered. And believe it or not, that is the gameplay, feel, and personality. Another thing people don't talk about enough is who was actually making these games back then. See, older games feel different because they were different at their core. Smaller teams, fewer suits in the room, less obsession over mass engagement, retention graphs, and how long you can keep someone playing just to sell them something later. A lot of these developers were just making a game because they wanted to make a cool game. Like Metal Gear Solid, for example. That game is unhinged in the best way. Stealth gameplay mixed with absurd horror, fourth wall breaks, long philosophical conversations, and boss fights that literally mess with your controller. No focus group on Earth approved that. Surely, that came from a creator with a strong vision who was just allowed to go wild. And that's the thing. The vision. Back then, games felt like someone's idea. Someone had a weird specific thing they wanted to make, and the team rallied around that. It wasn't what's trending right now or what system can we copy from the most successful game this year. Smaller teams also meant less compromise, fewer layers of approval, less corporate fear. If something was fun, it went in. It's that simple. If it was strange but interesting, they kept it. Now, I think a lot of modern games feel like they're designed by a committee, businessmen. Every decision feels filtered through market research, every mechanic tweaked to maximise engagement rather than enjoyment. And you can really feel that difference. Older games weren't trying to get you to play forever. They weren't building around daily logins or seasonal content. They just wanted to be a complete experience. You played it, you beat it, and that was okay. And because of that, the ideas were tighter and more credible. Think about Tomb Raider. That game, we all know, does not hold your hand. It throws you into these massive quiet environments and just trusts you to get on with it. The puzzles aren't there to pad time, they're there because someone thought this would be a good idea to figure out. And yeah, sometimes you would get stuck. Sometimes you'd be running around for way too long. But when you finally solved it, that feeling was unmatched. That kind of design doesn't really exist in big budget games anymore because, well, it's risky. Players might get frustrated and they might stop playing, and, God forbid, they might not engage. But older developers weren't thinking like that. They were thinking like the players. And seeing the rise of a lot of indie games today, I feel like a lot of that passion is coming back. Not in a cheesy way, but in a way where the world feels alive. And back then, it was even the case with limited technology. The animations are expressive, the music is iconic, the characters are memorable, even with hyper-realistic faces for that time. That's why these games still get remade, remastered and replayed, I think. Because the foundation is so strong, the ideas were pure. And honestly, I think that's why modern big games feel so exhausting at times. They're built to never end, built to constantly pull you back in. Older games just wanted to leave a mark, and, well, they did. At some point, games started caring way more about being big than being memorable. We now have bigger maps, bigger worlds, bigger budgets, and bigger promises, and somehow, smaller experiences. A lot of modern games feel like they're built from the same template. Open world, checklists and objectives everywhere, map icons screaming for attention, side quests, clear a camp, collect a thing, speak to this NPC. You've played one, you've kind of played them all. And it's weird because technically these games are absolutely insane. The graphics are unreal, the worlds are massive, and the technology is impressive. But actually playing them feels mundane and tedious. Older games didn't do that. They didn't stretch themselves thin trying to be endless. They were focused. Just look at every level in Crash Bandicoot. It has a clear start and an end. Every area in Spyro is distinct and memorable. You can still picture specific levels years later. And if we slow down for a minute and actually think about what made these old games good, it is safe to say it is not just the nostalgia aspect, although granted that does play a big part. A lot of it, I think, comes down to fundamentals. Older games were built around really solid, really clear game design. You always knew what the game wanted from you, even when it didn't outright tell you. The rules made sense. The worlds were readable and bright, beautiful even. You could look at a screen and understand what was dangerous, what was interactive, and where you could and couldn't go. In something like Crash Bandicoot, the camera is fixed, and the path is obviously clear. The obstacles are placed in a way that teaches you how to approach them. You don't need a tutorial pop-up every 5 seconds. The level itself is the tutorial. Same with Spyro. The way enemies react and the way gems are placed, the way the levels loop back on themselves, it all subtly teaches you how to move better, explore better, and play more optimal. The game trusts you to learn by doing. And that trust is huge. Older games didn't feel the need to constantly explain themselves. They let you experiment and fail. And failure wasn't treated like a bad thing. It was just part of learning the game. When you died, you usually knew exactly why. Be a mistimed jump, or you got impatient, you didn't read the enemy properly. And because of that, improvement felt natural. You weren't grinding stats or unlocking perks just to brute force progress. You were actually getting better. And that's something a lot of modern games are missing. Another big thing is focus. You see, old games usually had a small set of mechanics, and they absolutely squeezed everything they could out of them. Jumping wasn't simply just lifting your legs, it was timing, spacing, momentum. And combat wasn't just about attacking, but positioning, pattern recognition, and even rhythm to a certain degree. They didn't need 10 different systems layered on top of each other. They picked a core idea and committed to it. And because of that, everything felt intentional. Levels weren't padded, content wasn't filler. If something was in the game, it was there because it served the experience. And I'm so glad that indie games have been growing in popularity in recent years. And honestly, the same philosophy is probably why they've been doing so well. A lot of indie developers are basically carrying the torch of that older era. There's smaller teams, smaller budgets, but way more creative freedom. Once again, they don't have shareholders breathing down their necks. They don't have to design around engagement metrics or monetization strategies. They're just trying to make something good out of passion. When you play a good indie game, you can feel that obsession with the basics. How the movement feels, how responsive the controls are, how a level flows from one idea to the next. That's the stuff the old games nailed, I think, and that's what the indie games are bringing back. Indie developers don't really rely on massive graphics or endless content to carry the experience. Often they are pixelated and actually go back to that 90s style of art. So they have to get the feel right. They have to make sure that just moving around is fun, that interacting with the world feels satisfying. And when that happens, you don't need a giant map or 100-hour runtime, you just need a strong idea, executed well. I really do think we are seeing the revival of that old style, lots of love and passion, game creation. It's something I really want to see more of, and I'm happy that it is making this comeback. But let me know what you think. Do you believe the old games still hit different compared to the new modern games? Or do you think the modern games simply are just better? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you next time.